Welcome to the Together for Education in Ames podcast, where we have meaningful conversations on the state of our local school districts. Schools should be a place of hope for children where they can come and learn without fear of being judged and labeled. We advocate for unity in our student population and excellence in education. I'm Kira Werstein, a parent and college teaching professor, hosting with me today.
Sadrac Aleman, teacher.
And Jennifer Pinto, educator.
And today we are going to take a look at the difference between equality and equity. And not sure if we'll quite get to the bottom of it, but we're going to certainly explore it here today. So when we look up definitions, we have found a more consistent definition for the word equality, which, as it's described in the educational context, appears to be when in education, equality is achieved when students are all treated the same and have access to similar resources. So what I hear in this is equal opportunities as far as in the classroom, equal opportunities for success, to resources, to classes. Is that consistent with the way you're processing this definition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So equal opportunities, and we hear this a lot, in other contexts with applying for jobs and things like that, but we're primarily focused in education today. Mm-hmm. Another reason that we're trying to explore this is because in the Ames School District specifically, we've got a new superintendent, and he has announced that he is doing 100 days of intake. He's exploring, digging deep into the district, learning about the history of the professional development and the mission and all the different programming in the district, which I think is fantastic. And I happen to be I'm grateful to be on the email list. So I got an email as a parent about they are sorting through, the district has a mission to achieve equity across all students in the district. And so equity and equality aren't the same thing. And so, like I said, I was on that email list, and they are deciding on, evidently they're going to change the definition to help be more clear about what their mission is, be more clear across the district and in the community, because there is a lot of confusion about it. So I've got those options that they sent that they're choosing between, and we'll take a look at those. Before we do that, We've all been doing reading and research. Let's take a look at equity then. So when I looked at equity, educational equity specifically, it said, according to, and this is the Center for Educational Equity, equity is achieved when all students receive the resources that they need so that they graduate prepared for success after high school. I found different definitions of equity. What did you guys come up with, or what's your understanding about what equity is and how it's different from equality?
Something that I came across during my research is the definition: everybody has the same end results.
So equal outcomes, like equal scores.
Yeah.
When we're comparing across race, do they have the same MAP testing scores or FAST scores or their reading scores? Do they have? So equity means they've achieved the same scores in the definitions that you found.
They have reached the same scores, but my question is right now, are they all going to reach the same scores? Some kids will learn at a different pace than other kids. So are they going to all reach the same goal? Or, I'm like you, I'm trying to understand this equity versus equality. I don't know. I'm just throwing the question. They're like, are they all going to reach the same goal? Because, I work with students, mm-hmm. and they all are at different levels. They all are reaching different goals.
When you're teaching Spanish.
Correct.
Yeah.
So first thing that comes to my mind is the fact that I know of schools, and the first time I heard of this was out in California where I lived, was that they did away with grades. Mm-hmm. So they all still were able to progress to the next grade no matter how they performed.
Okay, and which is problematic because just because you don't measure it and put a grade on it doesn't mean they've had equal outcomes.
Right.
It just means you didn't measure it and then you just pushed everyone forward.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what came to my mind when you asked that question is, will they all be getting the same score? Well, how can they have the same if they don't even score or even measure?
Because I feel like, I'm just trying to think out loud here. And I think about my students, like they all receive the same instruction from me. They come by groups into my classroom. I have like 6 different groups and they all receive the same instruction. But at the end of the day, they not all are getting the same scores. Like, I don't know, from my point of view, I cannot have a group of students that all are going to get A+. Like, even though they're receiving the same education, the same instruction, I'm not doing, I have 6 different groups and I'm not doing one thing with one group that I'm not doing with the other one. I really trust me, really hard because it's 6 different groups, try to do the exact same activities. But at the end of the day, they are not all are going to get the A+. There's some of them that are going to B+, B, C, different, scores, but they are receiving the same education from me. But I don't feel like they are not are going to receive or get the same goal, like get the same scores, because we all think and receive information differently. So when you say, reaching out the same goals, like I'm confused there.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying, it sounds like, is you're challenging the possibility that it can even be achieved. Can we really all have the same scores?
Correct.
First of all, is what you're asking. And which raises a concerning question for me, which is the way you both worked in the Ames School District, and that was with the previous superintendent, and the verdict is still out on this new superintendent.
Yeah.
So, and I fully have no reason to believe that, he has intentions to discriminate or do anything harmful, and I'm very hopeful. I have high hopes that he will help unify, bring us together, and help clarify what exactly this is. And so what you're saying is, previously when you worked in the Ames district, equity was equal outcomes, and if there were not equal outcomes, then we learned about, with your professional development, they said that, well, there's been racism. Was that not what was communicated?
Well, I don't know if they've said equal outcomes.
Right.
Like, I don't remember if Ames had that in their definition for all students to have equal, have the same end result.
Okay.
Right.
When they show the data on the different scores, they ask the question. They showed the data based on race, and then they also showed it based on free and reduced lunch. And so the scores, the way they unfolded, I watched the school board meeting specifically, and there's multiple school board meetings, but the Asian students scored the highest, followed by white, followed by Hispanic, followed by black. And then in a similar way, students who were on free and reduced lunch had lower scores than students who were not on free and reduced lunch. And so then they asked the question, why do these disparities exist? Do you remember this now? And that's when they went into their critical consciousness training, and they listed off, why do these disparities exist? Because of teacher biases, because of institutional biases, systemic racism, low teacher expectations. So teachers having low expectations for the Hispanic, the black students in the free and reduced lunch, which is a little bit puzzling to me, how even a teacher knows that a student is on free and reduced lunch.
Right.
I don't know, because that accounting, how you buy your students lunch, the parent does that from home.
Right.
You put in. So I don't know how they would know that even, but nonetheless, they said, why do these disparities exist? because of teacher biases. Therefore, we need to have critical consciousness training. What the district has on the website, and I know that they're undergoing with the new superintendent there, he's doing a review of all this. So I'm not attributing it to him, but it was the previous superintendent. And it says August of 2017, the Ames School District embarked on critical consciousness path. And that has to help support professional development and decision making in the district. So what is critical consciousness? It's defined as the willingness and the ability to see how power and privilege are at work to systematically advantage some while simultaneously disadvantage others. Now, at first you might think, wow, that's a mouthful. What does that mean? And if you listen to some of our previous episodes, Dr. Jones, the previous director of equity, explained that it's who are the people in power and privilege. This is the dominant group majority. These are the white, heterosexual, cisgender males. Those are the people in power that are working to oppress the marginalized groups. So the Black, free and reduced lunch, Hispanic students, and he said that they're putting these systems in place to disadvantage those. And so what we need to do is dismantle those systemically racist policies in order to achieve equity, the equal outcomes. Mm-hmm. So he described it as the reason we have these unequal outcomes is because of systemic racism, that being the biases of the teacher. Mm-hmm. Is that consistent with, when I listened to his videos and that he made public, that was how he communicated it. So equity, based on his definition and what you found, Jen, as you read through, was trying to achieve the equal outcomes. And so then what you're saying, Sadrac, is, how are we going to achieve that? Because any which way you split up an entire group, whether you split it by race or you split it by socioeconomic status or you split it by the color of shoes you're wearing, two groups are not going to be exactly the same.
No, and then the other thing is, like I think Jennifer said, so to have, this equity part, then does that mean that even if they're not reaching the goals, I have to give them a good grade, even though the knowledge is not there, just to be, using this equity part with them? And I'm like, no, like if you're not reaching them, then come to me, we can review this together and I'm going to help you get there. But I'm not going to give you an easy A or A+ to just make you happy.
Well, and that's not helping them.
No, not at all.
Maybe in the short term.
Right.
But in the long term, they're not learning.
Correct. Because then they're moving into the next, level of Spanish, and they're coming on to this next teacher with no knowledge, and then it's a headache to the next teacher, because then you have to review or reteach, to fill in the gaps. Then it's more work for you, for the next teacher, and the next teacher is not fully teaching that upper level, the next level, because he has to come back and go to their level and say, okay, let's start all over. And then right there, it's like a month of teaching that is gone.
And how about the student? I'm sure that if they start to notice your pattern of behavior is, if I express a little frustration, then he'll give me the grade. Right. Even if I don't put the effort forth. And so they may conclude, oh, this is no problem. I'm not going to do the homework because Mr. Alaman is just going to give me the grade. And so, dropping the bar down doesn't help students.
And the other thing is that if you think about this, topic, we will have to, like you say, lowering the bar for those students, meaning teachers will have to, how do I explain this? Teachers will have to come down to their level, like I said, and the students, or give them that easy score. And like you say, students are not learning. They're just getting something easy from you. So from my point of view, that's not equity, because then you're damaging the students, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're just not going to want to excel. They will just be like, no, I'm going to do the very minimum because then I will get an easy score anyways.
Yeah, so it's the irony is just too much, because then it's reinforcing the gap that we're trying to close
Correct.
with more bias, and then it would essentially be a policy, you know, if
That's
everyone
right.
has to get the same grade, a policy that would reinforce true gaps even though we're not measuring it.
And that's where this is what I wanted to say, where I was going like, then it's not the students' fault that they are in this place. It is us, the adults, the teachers, our fault for creating a system that it doesn't work.
Doesn't challenge them.
Right. It doesn't at all. So it is not their fault. It is our fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the result may not be the same grade, but just passing to the next grade. Let's just let everybody pass through.
Right.
You know, the goal, the result is for all 8th graders to then move on to high school. And we will make that happen by not giving grades.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a college teaching professor, like I said. And so if a student doesn't earn a grade, I just ethically, it's me lying if I give them a grade, you know, and they'll frame it sometimes like, can't you help me out? And so then I have to help reframe actually what helping them is. And I've had to do this with colleagues too, because some of my colleagues want me to just push them along, and they kind of, I don't know, maybe roll their eyes at me a little bit, and they think, oh, you know, you just think this tough love is what's good for them. And I think, well, no, it's not tough love. This is just showing them love. This is actually helpful, because if I teach them that life is just, don't do your best, don't meet the criteria, complain about it, and then you're going to get the grade that you didn't earn, then they graduate and they go on and they think that that's how the world works. And
you're not preparing them for real life.
Right. It doesn't work like that. If
Yeah.
I didn't do my job, I wouldn't keep my job. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the same with you. What if you just didn't come to work, you know? Or what if you just only taught half your class?
Right.
So, I think that what it sounds like, we're in agreement that just giving a grade to create the same equal grades across the board is not helpful to students.
No.
What about the definition, if we go back to educational equity that was defined by the Center for Educational Equity? So it says, this is different. It doesn't discuss, it's different than equality, giving everyone the same opportunities. It's also different from trying to achieve the same outcomes. So this is how they define it. Equity is achieved when all students receive the resources that they need to graduate prepared for success. And it is graduate with success after high school. So it is somewhat vague. What is success for each person? It may be different. And so equity, a simple way I've also heard people say, is giving students what they need. And as long as we're not suggesting that equity means that they're all going to have the same outcomes, then if equity is giving students what they need, I support that, certainly.
But are we giving them what they need or what they want?
That's the question. So you are currently a Spanish teacher.
Yes.
You were an ESL teacher, English as second language. You were special ed.
Yeah.
And so what you both did with the students in your classroom is you gave them programming, you gave them curriculum that was based on their current needs. It wasn't what all the students in the reg ed classroom were getting.
Correct.
So it wasn't the equal opportunity. The equal opportunity would be the second language students and the special needs students sit in the classroom with the reg ed students, and everybody gets the same lesson. That would be
Right.
equality, right?
And
Yeah.
even in the special ed field, that's, they have the least restricted environment. And that's what they want. They want students to be in that least restricted environment most of the day. So they're really trying to push, for students to stay in their regular ed classroom majority of the day. And I know that there's research to show that they do learn at a faster rate when they are with their peers, than being pulled out. But that's where you cannot compare every student with that,
It's an average.
because there's been students who they are not able to learn in that environment. And so, yeah, like I've had students where I'm like, I need them more in my room. If we're going to actually see growth, if we're going to see the gap close, I need them a lot more during the day.
Maybe they're distracted. They need a quieter environment. It could be.
It's more like, how are they learning?
Okay.
Because they may not be able to learn audibly like the average student.
Right.
They might need more repetition.
Okay.
They might need it to be at a more basic level and more slow
Yeah.
and not fast paced, because that's what we do is one concept Monday, new concept Tuesday. By the time we get to Friday, there's 5 concepts that they've had to learn.
Yeah.
And that's what your students needed. Simple. It's not what they wanted. That's what they needed. In my case, when I was teaching ESL, I will pull out my kids too from their classroom, because most of my kids were newcomers, which is, kids that are brand new to the U.S. They don't have any knowledge of the language, English. And if they sit in the classroom the whole day, all they hear is blah, 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 blah. And then that's when they start maybe misbehaving or not paying attention or being distracted, because all they hear is blah, blah, blah. But they come with me, and I'm doing music videos with them. We're dancing, we're jumping, we're doing gestures, we're moving. And that's what they call their attention, because I'm going at a lower pace with them, and I'm showing with my body what I'm trying for them to understand. And they enjoy that. So I'm giving them what they need in order for them to go back to their classroom and understand a little bit more of what's going on in the class. But again, we were serving our students according to their needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you even do that with your Spanish classes
Oh,
still.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Because
So-
the idea is for me to not use a lot of English and only use Spanish. So I have to do all of those things as well.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we get in this box of thinking where if we use the box of equity or equality, sometimes I think that we take away the freedom of meeting the students' needs. Because we feel like, oh, well, this is how it looks because this is the definition.
Yep.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. So is this what you're saying, that it seems like the word equity, since there are different definitions, some people mean equal outcomes by it. Some people don't mean that. They mean giving students what they need on the front end. And then equality over here is what has been more traditionally
Right.
providing the same opportunity for all people.
Correct.
If you check the equality box, then people assume that you're opposed to supporting people in the way that they need it. Is that?
And even the phrase giving everybody the same opportunity, there's so many differences, I mean, across the board, that is it even realistic that not everybody needs the same opportunity? And that's where I feel that that's where we are not having the freedom
Yeah.
to give student A what they need, because, oh, we have to give them all the same opportunity. No. And that's something that I feel like I really grew into my last year in Ames when I was challenged with this. And I felt like there was a box. And then when I realized that these students really need they have specific needs. And a lot of times the opportunities look different.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's like they have the same opportunity to learn, but the support you're giving them with the resources, the repetition, or the delivery. Is it auditory? Is it sensory? We're moving around. Is it repetition with their writing or whatever it may be? So those resources are individualized. And so actually, just my concerns with the word equity is that since there's different definitions, you never know what people are talking about when they say equity, and what that we may have more in agreement with each other across our community, but there's just been a small group of people that means something different by equity, like what I described with the director of equity, Anthony Jones, and his critical consciousness training. And that had to do with like labeling students oppressed and oppressor, and then redistributing power and voice in order to achieve equal outcomes. And so it sounds like that there is a group of educators that don't see equal outcomes as what equity is, but educational equity is on the front end, providing students with what they need. So whether it is more repetition, a quieter classroom, or ESL programming, then those students are getting what they need. So what we can kind of keep our eyes open for, as I said, in the Ames District, they're working on clarifying to the community what equity is and why that's a part of the mission. I'm going to continue with high hopes that it will be consistent with the definition given by the Center for Equitable Learning, or Educational Equity rather. And so there's 3 different options that the district has, that the district sent out, and maybe, they'll go with a 4th option. Who knows what they'll decide. But I believe that there will be more community forums and listening to parents, listening to the community as the new superintendent is exploring the district and the mission and the strategic plan going forward. So I wanted to share just a little, since this was shared with me, it wasn't in private or anything. There was a lot of people, I believe, that got these different definitions. But so what it was, the first option that they're discussing is each person in the Ames Community School District, and then they list off different groups across race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, ability, language, citizen status, religious affiliation, gender identity, sexual orientation, will have entrance into, involvement with, and full benefit of the opportunities, resources, and support they need to imagine, nurture, and achieve their dreams. So that was option 1. Before I share my thought, what do you guys think about that first option?
I don't know. I was just following, and aren't they getting all of these opportunities though? Well,
so they say that everyone should have the same opportunities, and across all of these different groups, which, of course we all support that everyone should have the same opportunities. They're saying involvement with, the full benefit of the resources available and the support they need. I guess what I got a little tripped up on was the last part of it, where it says that they need to imagine, nurture, and achieve their dreams. I just that is so abstract.
Right.
And I think it's so critical that schools or any organization maintains focus on what the primary scope of their purpose is. What in a public school district, your purpose is to educate.
Right.
Provide an education. Your role is not to nurture. That's a family's role. Your goal is not to provide every resource they need to achieve a dream. Providing the education. I think that's really important that we stay focused on. That's the goal of a school district, is to provide an education and the resources that students need to provide that, or to attain that education.
Right.
And ultimately, once they have that their education, that is a tool that they need to achieve whatever it is their dreams may be. But I mean, maybe I'm splitting hairs here. What do you guys think?
I go back to the full benefit of opportunities, resources, and support. If they're already receiving all this, because that's what they're supposed to be receiving, why do I have to put it on a piece of paper?
You mean, why do they need it defined?
Right.
Well,
if that's something that I'm going to school to receive all of those things, I mean, that's what I go there for. So why do I have to put it on a piece of paper? And maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I'm just trying to.
I agree too with that.
Right.
Because I've been thinking about that a lot throughout the day. It's obvious that we have resources for students.
Right.
well, and it's the law.
It is.
Correct.
Hello, Civil Rights Act of 1964.
I mean, it is the law.
yeah.
And especially as a special ed teacher, that is legally binding. So if we're not giving them these resources,
Yes. Right. Okay. And I do see that point. So the school has a mission, and the mission as it is right now is to provide equity. And I think that what the superintendent, it appears based on the podcasts I've listened to and the articles and how he's quoted in the Tribune and things, it sounds like he's aware that there is tension in our community about what equity is and about what the school's goals are. And so they're trying to, he has a goal to, and that's what it said in this email as well, is to clarify what exactly equity is and what it's not. And so that's what these definitions aim to do. Just kind of like in our discussion today, it was like, well, I read this about equity and you saw something different about equity. So I think he wants to clarify and write it out so that it's clear that the school is for all students, which I guess is my hope, that they're for all students, right? So I think that's the purpose of it, is to kind of bring everybody together around the mission and unify. There was an article in the Tribune, the local paper, that he said, I want to be a unifier. I want to bring the school together. And so if we clearly have out in front of us what is the mission of this school, then the hope is then that we all can support and rally around that. But right now, the term equity as it sits in the mission is ambiguous. It means different things to different people. So I think he's trying to define it, which is why they're looking at these different options.
So, and you were saying that parents are concerned about the definition of equity, and what's the other part that you said?
Well, with this first definition, it's like, well, what exactly do you mean by give them the support they need to imagine, nurture, and achieve their dreams? I'm speaking as a parent, as one person. I've lost trust in some, not all. My kids' teachers this year are fantastic, but I've lost trust in some public educators, and I don't want them nurturing my children's dreams. Like, I'm their mom. I want to do that.
That's right.
Can you teach them math? We'll do dreams at home.
yeah.
If they want to be encouraging of their dreams, if my child says, hey, I've got one that wants to be an obstetrician. And so if they write about that and the teacher wants to say, that's an awesome goal, you can totally do that, then by all means, you know. So, I mean, is there malice within this first option? Certainly not. That's not what I'm suggesting. Does that make more sense? So the next definition Each student in the Ames Community School District has access to educational resources and engagement with relevant academic experiences necessary for success across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, family background, and or income. In my feedback, I said, well, this is the best definition of all three. This is what we've just discussed across any group. All kinds of students get what they need. I also like how brief it is. It's just simple.
Right.
Do you guys have any comments or questions? Or, do you, as you read that definition?
I like the part where it says access. Like they all have access to educational resources. I just feel like, to me, that speaks volumes. We all have access. They all have access to all that district has.
Yeah.
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 And then, of course, is engagement with relevant academic experiences. That's what they should be getting to, nice, very, academic experiences within whatever they're learning in school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one more time, academic experiences, educational experience, everything related to education, nothing outside that, education, period.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying under the surface there is they're not forcing anyone's political or religious views, because again, this is public education. There's so many different, and that's what was listed in one of these definitions, is there's different religious affiliations. And so it's totally inappropriate to push a religious or a values system that there are so many different views on. We want to be welcoming to all people and provide the education. That's what the school does. Now, the last one I actually found most concerning. Option 3, each and every student in Ames School District across individual characteristics, identities, and circumstances has the access to and meaningfully participates in high-quality learning experiences that empower self-determination and reduce outcome disparities.
Yeah.
So it's again, the outcome disparities. You can't have equal access and equal outcomes.
No.
We can't have both. It doesn't work that way.
No.
No.
So.
And that's why I was explaining with my students. They all have the access, to me, to my resources, to my teaching, but the outcome is not going to be the same. It is not.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it is never, I'm using the word never, it is never going to be the same.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you both have one kiddo, but I have 3. And they have the same parents, the same home, the same socioeconomic status, the same race. But they're all different. They have different, I've got one in ELP, one that at one point was on below benchmark, had a reading intervention. I've got one on a behavior intervention. So I've got all different flavors coming out of the same, they have the same access to the same resources. And they go to the same school. They've had some of the same exact teachers.
And I was thinking about that exact same thing. If we take the world population and try to look at all this, look at the micro. That's the family unit.
And there's differences in that.
I mean, we're doing the same thing with our own kids. I have one. But, it's the same concept.
Right.
But on a very small scale. I look at even my own life as, a sibling. And raised up with the same parents. Same even circumstances that were not so good, that were not good.
Yeah.
And I went this direction. My sibling went this direction. We are completely different. But I don't measure her success to mine. Because she's successful and my other siblings are successful.
And it doesn't mean that you've had a parent that was oppressive to one of you.
Right.
No, it doesn't mean that. Just people are different.
Right.
So
And then you want a whole classroom to have the same outcome. You're not getting in with 3 kids, and they want a classroom of 20-some students to have the same, outcome. I'm like, how do you do that?
right, exactly.
You have a magic formula. Show it to me so I can use it with my students.
Yeah. Fair is not equal, right? That the old expression is
Right.
just the same situation here. Do you, as educators, have thoughts for parents as this district, and this is going to happen across the country, but as they navigate this word, equity, what does it mean? Do you have any ideas for parents?
Research, please.
Read,
Go
read,
back
read.
into
Yeah.
history. I'm diving into this to see when was it formed, why was it created, what's the purpose of it. Go way back into history and just look to see, and then ask yourself, is this something that's really going to actually cause more division
Within your kid's school?
within the school, within the communities?
Yeah. How is it defined?
I would, like Jennifer said, do your own research. Don't let the school give you a definition and you
No.
believe it.
No.
No, I work in a school, and I was like, don't you trust what they're telling you? Go and do your own research, and like you say, go back in history, not just like what is like right now, what people are saying right now about equity, but go back and try to find out where does the word comes from, who started it, why they started it, and all that. But I will say, like, do your own research, read, and if you have any doubts, go to the schools, and don't believe it, but it's just like, just question them.
Yeah.
Okay, you're saying this, but this is my thinking. What can we do about it? Just confront them.
And
Yeah.
follow your intuition. If something does not set right, follow that
Yeah.
and let that guide you to having more knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how exactly equity is unfolding in your own child's classroom. Like, what does that mean for for my child's building, their school, their classroom? What do you mean by that? How does that play out? All right. Well, I think we'll continue to learn more, and we'll keep our listeners updated as the district decides on a definition. And you can be sure that we will examine that here. So I'm on the edge of my seat to see what the board votes on for the definition as the superintendent continues to take a deep look into the district. And I'm so glad that he's doing that. And so what we want to just wrap up today with is that we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, join the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts because it's together that we build a thriving community in Ames and Central Iowa.